And now is the time to
Thank you.
proceed further in the function, and it is the time to listen to one more wonderful uh, personality, our next resource person. She's from our own Duggar land, and she is none other than Professor Dr. Renu Nanda Ma'am, Dean, Faculty of Education, University of Jammu, India. And actually, when I was asking my professor for her brief information, and then the only thing that I got, and I think that shows that how down to earth she is. And she just gave me a little sentence that no need to add anything, and she said that. Uh, she is an ardent learner and student of education. That's it. And that's enough, she wrote. And I guess uh, uh, the topic she is dealing with is the National Education Policy 2020, a milepost. That is her topic. So, over to you, ma'am. I heartily welcome you to this one day conclave, and we are eager to listen to your beautiful voice and beautiful lecture. Thank you so much, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ravinder. Thank you so much. सभी को मेरा अभिनंदन नमस्कार. I'm so very happy to be part of this wonderful national conclave. You know why? All of you, dear viewers, listeners, my co-panelists, the faculty members of the Government College of Education. Some of you are my students, some of you are my friends, and also some of you are very senior to me. I'm very happy, I said in the beginning, is because I am an alumnus of the Government College of Education. So any assignment, any activity, any task, any event which I take up, wherein I have to be talking, on the platform of this Government College of Education, I feel honored and privileged. So thank you all very much. Uh, Speakers have done a lot of justice. It was so nice. I would compliment and congratulate all of you, especially Dr. Shubhra Jambal and Dr. Sushma Sharma. I'm sure they worked very hard under the dynamic leadership of your principal and, of course, the other government officials, to have aptly and appropriately selected the speakers on a very sensitive, a very sensational, burning, and an area of interest for one and all. Why so is because we are all going through very difficult and trying times. And in these times, when we all heard about the National Policy of Education, National Education Policy 2020, I mean, it was just like one good news coming from the government, that too with a thunderous applause. So I think all of us are very happy about it, celebrating. And since then, I would like to share with everyone here that the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, under the leadership of the Lieutenant Governor that we have, Mr. Manoj Sinha, we've been trying to make, I think, numerous efforts. Firstly, by organizing two major conferences, one in the University of Kashmir for people belonging to the Kashmir region, and one in the University of Jammu for people belonging to the Jammu region. Thereafter, SCRT has taken up a lead under the dynamic leadership of the chairperson, the director of SCRT, Professor Veena Pandita, for having organized a wonderful series, of the different aspects of national education policy. So it's so nice now that the Government College of Education has also thought of organizing some kind of a debate, some kind of a discussion, wherein we all come together, share our thoughts and perceptions, and see which way are we going. I was listening. I've been glued to it right from the morning, and I'm so very happy that I could listen to the most, important aspects of the policy being highlighted by the earlier speakers, the co-panelists. At the outset, I would like to say that when we look at this NEP 2020, I totally agree with Professor Ramanujan that we need to read, reread several times. And that is one of the reasons as to why, in my own conversation that I have with you today in this conclave, that I thought I would pick up, some important aspects from the policy per se. And the reason for that is this, that usually what happens is that we talk about the policy, we talk about the initiatives, we talk about the different promises, but we move away because then we, kind of color it the way we look at it. So here is something which is very original, which we all need to understand, which we all need to implement, and also at the same time continue a dialogue so that we not only help the Lieutenant Governor of this Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, but also all the stakeholders, which includes all of you who are listening right from the morning to this particular conclave, and also through many other programs and events which we can organize from time to time. The aspirational policy shares ideas to revamp education, teaching, and assessment systems in schools, colleges, as well as teachers' professional level training. The world is undergoing rapid changes in knowledge landscape, with various dramatic scientific and technological advances, such as the rise of big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Many unskilled jobs worldwide may be taken over by machines, while the need for the skilled workforce, particularly involving mathematics, data sciences, and computer science, in conjunction with multidisciplinary abilities across the sciences, social sciences, and humanities, will be increasingly in great demand. NEP 2020 lays particular emphasis on the development of the creative potential of each individual. It is based on the principle that education must develop not only the cognitive capacities, both the foundational capacities of literacy and numeracy, and higher order cognitive capacities, such as critical thinking and problem solving, but also social, ethical, and emotional capacities and dispositions. Now, this policy has wonderful key takeaways for all of us who come from different backgrounds. Herein, the policy talks about recognizing, identifying, and fostering the unique capabilities of each student. Now, when we say that each student has the creative and the innovative temper, it's for the first time in the history of Indian education that we have a policy which talks about unleashing that innovative and creative temper in every student, in every child. And this can be possible by sensitizing the teachers as well as the parents to promote each student's holistic development in both academic and non-academic spheres. We have to accord the highest priority to achieving foundational literacy and numeracy by all students till grade 3. This policy is highly flexible because it gives the ability to choose learning trajectories and programs and choose one's own paths in life according to one's talents and interests. There are no hard separations between arts and sciences, between curricular and extracurricular activities, as said by the earlier speakers as well, between vocational and academic streams, and also in order to eliminate the harmful hierarchies among the silos between different areas of learning. The policy lays a lot of stress on multidisciplinary and holistic education across sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, sports, so that there is integrity of all knowledge. It highly talks about integration. This policy also emphasizes on conceptual understanding rather than rote learning, which I think as teacher educators, we all have been trying to talk about it, discuss in different forums and platforms, but nothing much has been happening because our students till now were being prepared only for the exam. So the policies that we had in place implemented were exam oriented and not student oriented or child oriented. The policy lays emphasis on ethics, human and constitutional values. I think it's very important. NCRT has taken a lot of initiatives in the past with regard to promotion of values. So much so that, they had even sponsored research to young researchers, faculty members, wherein the money would come from NCRT to be undertaking research projects. How I know is that I did one wonderful project, which was with regard to promotion of human values in Dogri-speaking children of Jammu region. And I thoroughly enjoyed doing that project. And while I was doing that project, believe me, Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I felt why cannot we have this as part of our core curriculum? While I was doing my research at the grassroots level, which was primarily in the rural areas, in the rural domains, the teachers, were mostly not cooperating because for them it was something which I was doing was not part of the syllabus. So they felt that it was, extracurricular and why must we send our students? But because it was a research project, and somehow we were doing interesting activities that we got children into the fold. But surprisingly, this has never been part of our core curriculum. The policy also talks about multilingualism. The power of language in teaching and learning is very important. And I think all the speakers, all of you will agree that one of the biggest problems which are being faced by children in the lower classes is the problem of language. We have a different language at home, then we come to school, we have a different language, and which is a working language, and then we have a language wherein we write our exams. So I think when we have multilingualism, when we have the three language formula, and we also include the mother tongue, giving it a lot of importance at the grassroots level, I'm sure this will bring a lot of changes in our curriculum and the transition of the curriculum as well. The focus is on regular formative assessment for learning rather than summative assessment that encourages just the coaching culture. I tell you, dear viewers and listeners, I'm so very happy while I'm reading these things. You know why? Is because I have literally, believe me, honestly confessing, practiced all of these, most of these principles when I started my career way back in the year 1989 to 1997. I worked in a school, and this was more or like an experimental school with experiential learning, multilingualism, formative assessment. And I still remember so many years back, people would say, we don't know what this lady is talking about. What kind of understanding does she has? What is she going to do with the children? The children are not learning, they are not cramming. But one thing that gave me immense satisfaction and happiness was, you know what? The children would come lovingly laughing to the school gates, enter the school gates. And a large majority of them would miss their school bus to stay back in the school. So I think that's very, very rewarding. And herein, all of us, you see, the teacher educators are sitting and brooding and thinking and wanting to know why there are dropouts. Why cannot we retain children in the school after a particular stage? And what is it that we need to offer to our children, to our parents? And also, to what extent can we groom, train our teachers in different pedagogies so that they are in a position to deliver what is required to be delivered? You see, in economics, we talk about theory of demand and supply. But what is actually happening is, till now, we were only supplying, it was a one-way traffic, supplying whatever we had, whatever we had already, purchased or was available, or we had, kind of harnessed, and we were masters of that. So we were delivering that only. But with this, I think all of us have to change. And believe me, while I was reading, I was going through this, I was so very happy that all of us have to undergo a lot of change in our own transaction, our own understanding, our own conceptualization, our reflections, so that we are in a position to match with what is required in this policy. Then there is extensive use of technology in the policy, which means that we will now have to see to what extent can we have a blended kind of a teaching and learning, removing the language barriers, increasing access of the Divyang students, and educational planning, along with a wonderful management system. What a wonderful policy. It says respect for diversity and respect for the local context. I was very happy. Madam Kashmira was again and again saying she couldn't pronounce the word Dogri properly, but I was very happy, believe me, because this makes you feel proud of the fact that you belong to a particular region, a particular community, a particular area. And now, as it is, we all understand. See, India is famous for its diversity. We talk about it. But I think Jammu and Kashmir is the most appropriate example when we talk about diversities in terms of culture, in terms of traditions, in terms of languages, and whatnot. So, looking at this particular aspect, what we have to do is that we have to understand that the curriculum pedagogy policy has to be in line with what is required in a given context. So that means we don't have to have borrowed concepts as to what is being taught in our neighboring state or in other place. We can contextualize it, of course, keeping the national standards into our vision, into our mind. Then there is full equity and inclusion. Now, these two aspects ensure that students are able to thrive in the educational system. This policy synergizes the curriculum across all levels of education, from early childhood care and education to school education, from school education to higher education. Something has been bothering me for a very, very long time, especially ever since I became a teacher educator. And you know what is that? This is a de-link, a disconnect between school education and higher education. Why cannot we think of, synergizing, coming on the same platform, being together? What I mean here is that when we talk about the board of studies in the higher education, why cannot we take people from school education background, be it the diets, the SIs, the SCRTs, or the teachers teaching at the school level? Because eventually our students have to go back to the same system in one form or the other. For internships, for our different training programs, practicums, we depend a lot on the schools. But while formulating, our plans, while designing our curriculum, we do not take them into our fold. Similarly, for the schools also, when they organize the training programs, when they look at the training programs, they do not include the higher education. For one, I mean, inviting a couple of people is not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a very good bond, synergizing in true letter and spirit, so that we have some fruitful outcomes as a basis, for this particular collaboration between the two systems. Then teachers and faculty as the heart of the learning process. Now, we have been having a policy, we've been talking about things wherein, usually it is either content centered, some or the other center is there, but it is definitely not the child centered aspect which is taken into consideration. The policy also emphasizes on outstanding research, which is a core requisite for outstanding education and development. See, research is one domain, one area, which is not part of our regular teaching, despite the fact that when we talk about higher education, we do talk about teaching, we talk about research, we talk about extension, but the focus on research is not there. And there could be several reasons behind that. This policy definitely leads us to a continuous review of the progress based on sustained research and regular assessment by educational experts. Now, apart from this, we know that the policy has a very wonderful, a very bright, a vision which makes us all proud, certainly of our own country, of our own, I would say, the heritage that we own, the heritage that we all belong to. So it envisions an education system rooted in Indian ethos that contributes directly to transforming India, that is Bharat, sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all, thereby making India a global knowledge superpower. The vision of the policy is to instill among the learners a deep rooted pride in being Indian, not only in thought, but also in spirit, intellect, and deeds, as well as to develop knowledge, skills, values, and dispositions that support responsible commitment to human rights, sustainable development and living, and global well being, reflecting a truly global citizen. So I think there are so many things that this policy makes us proud of. Uh, as we all know, we've all read and heard so much about this policy in different platforms and forums, that the focus is, school education, higher education. Then there are the key areas of focus, which include the professional education, adult education, lifelong learning, promotion of Indian languages, art and culture, technology use, integration, online and digital education, and then finally making it happen from paper to reality and implementation. Looking at the school education, which, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, is very, very dear to my heart. And those of you who know me would appreciate and understand that why I'm so enthusiastic about the school education, because this is the foundational stage. We are not giving importance to this particular stage. Now, this herein, in this policy, there is a clear emphasis on early childhood care and education, which is the foundation of all learning. Now, this early childhood care and education will actually be, we will be able to achieve this to ensure universal access to high quality across the country in a phased manner. So we cannot achieve it overnight by declaring the policy is there, it has been rolled out, and then there we are going to implement it. Now it will take its own time. All of us, you, me, everyone, has to be part of this. We have to own this policy to ensure that whatever has been said, whatever has been done, sees the light of the day as well. Special attention and priority will be given to districts and locations that are particularly socio-economically disadvantaged. ECC will be delivered through a significantly expanded and strengthened system, and this can consist of the standalone Anganwadis co-located with primary schools, pre-primary schools, or sections covering at least children of 5 to 6 years of age, co-located with the existing primary schools, and it will also be standalone preschools, all of which would recruit workers, teachers, specially trained in curriculum and pedagogy of ECC. And I must apprise the audience here that the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir has already taken a lead as to how are they going to train those who are actually working at the grassroots level with regard to early childhood care and education. Then the policy says that this would also be introduced in the ashram shalas in the tribal dominated areas. And the whole purpose of doing it is to ensure that it has its reach throughout the length and breadth. And the best part is to reach to the last child, which may not remain, out of the ambit of this particular policy. Now, in order to ensure that this gets implemented, I'm talking of the early childhood care education, what a wonderful way is to ensure that the execution part will be carried out jointly by ministries of HRD, Women and Child Development, Health and Family Welfare, and Tribal Affairs. Till now, what has been happening is that these ministries are working, but they are working in isolation, right? So this is for the first time that this policy also talks about a mechanism by which early childhood care and education becomes deliverable at the doorstep, not negotiating with its basis, the foundations, the principles, the objectives for which this policy has actually come out in a very, very elaborate manner. The policy talks about the foundational literacy and numeracy, which is very important. Believe me, dear viewers and listeners, I have worked at the grassroots level apart from teaching in the university. And I have seen for myself that at the grassroots level, it is so very difficult to come to terms with the realities which are being faced by all of us. Now, what happens is the ability to read and write and perform basic operations with numbers is a necessary foundation and an indispensable prerequisite for all future schooling and lifelong learning. However, various governmental and non-governmental surveys indicate, and believe me, I've been part of some of these surveys, right from NCRT to Pratham and many more, which indicate that we are currently in a learning crisis. A large proportion of the students currently in the elementary school, say estimated to be about 5 crore in number, have not attained the foundational literacy and numeracy. That is the ability to read and comprehend basic text and the ability to carry out basic addition and subtraction with Indian numerals. It was, like for me, very, very surprising. But because of the fact that I had been working in the, rural areas, it was not so shocking, but it was surprising to see that students were not able to read words which had 4 letters or 3 letters in a given language, whether it was Urdu or it was Bodhi, it was English, Hindi. Similarly with the numbers. So a child who is in class 4 or 5, you expect a child to do division and multiplication who cannot recognize the numbers, does not know what is addition, what is subtraction. So I think this is for the first time that things will be put in place in an appropriate manner. And that too, there are, I would say, timelines that have been set to achieve one goal after the other. So therefore, what is very important along with this is that this policy talks about the nutrition and the health of the children through healthy meals and the introduction of well-trained social workers, counselors, and community involvement into the schooling system. It's very important to have community members on board in a school system actively participating. If you look at the researches, they show that the morning hours after a nutritious breakfast can be particularly productive for the study of cognitively more demanding subjects. And hence, these hours may be leveraged by providing a simple but energizing breakfast. And then this can be followed by a midday meal as well. So the whole idea is to see that what is it that is being included while talking about the foundational stages. Then all school children shall undergo regular health checkups, especially for 100% immunization in schools, and health cards will be issued to monitor the same. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you will agree that we do not have the systems in place. We have vibrant health departments working all over the country, even in our own union territory. But then there is a disconnect, I repeat once again, between this department and the school education department or the other departments. So now with the help of this policy, if it is executed the way it has been envisaged, I don't think that the day is far when we have a complete health checkup, and we also have a complete, I would say, the performance appraisal of the children based on formative assessment, helping the teachers to take, I think, a very different kind of a decision about child before giving any remarks, before saying anything to any child, no matter what the situation is. How to what extent can we, counsel, educate, or train a child? Going further, this policy talks about, I've already said a little bit, that curtailing dropout rates and ensuring access to education at all levels. So I think since I've already talked about it, but we have to ensure it is not just the infrastructure and participation, but the quality education has to be ensured so that children do not lose their interest in attending the schools. And therefore, what is important is to see that the curriculum is more engaging and useful. With me, most of you would have done research at the grassroots level, and I can understand, all of us can appreciate that parents have been talking about the very fact that why should we send our children to school? What is being taught in school is actually not being used by a child when he or she finishes the school or is a dropout. So therefore, something which is relevant for a child in a given context, in a given situation, is very important. To facilitate learning for all students with special emphasis on socio-economically disadvantaged groups, the scope of school education will be broadened to facilitate multiple pathways to learning involving both the formal and the non-formal education modes. Open and distance learning programs offered by the National Institute of Open Schooling and state open schools will be expanded and strengthened for meeting and learning needs of young people in India who are not able to attend a physical school, which is very important. We all understand that it is not feasible, it is not possible in certain locations. So this policy also talks about, like I said in the beginning, that we have to have a blended mode. We have to look for different options. What is workable, what is possible, what is plausible, what is doable, what is achievable, has to be put into practice. Now, moving further, we talk about curriculum and pedagogy in schools. Curricular and pedagogical structure of school education will be reconfigured to make it responsive and relevant to the developmental needs and interests of learners at different stages of their development. corresponding to the age ranges, which is 3 to 8, 8 to 11, 11 to 14, and 14 to 18 years. So for that, we will have stages like the foundational stage for the first one. Then there is the preparatory stage, the middle stage, and the secondary stage. And I think NCRT has been given the task, which maybe we'll talk a little later as well, to come up with the curriculum which will match these levels, and then the states, the union territories, can contextualize the same. So that will be, I think, a very interesting and a very good exercise. The aim of education will not only be cognitive development, but also building character and creating holistic and well rounded individuals equipped with the key 21st century skills. Our education does not have any skills. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, you and me, we all know that there was an introduction of skill education in the school education department. But then this remained confined to the skill word per se, because the faculty was not available. It was very difficult to translate the curriculum. And then, see to what extent can this be concretized to realize the goals for which skill education is actually meant for. But here we see a ray of hope. Curriculum content will be reduced in each subject to its core essentials to make space for critical thinking and more holistic inquiry, discovery, discussion, and analysis based learning. Now, like I said in the beginning, that we talk about rote learning, cramming, but then there is no space, no scope for the teachers and the students, because the syllabus is so much, it has to be completed. If it is not completed, the teachers are taken to task. But I have a question for all of you, viewers and listeners. What is the objective of covering the syllabus wherein the child has no understanding? The child knows nothing of nothing, including the letters, the alphabets, the numbers. Forget talking about, we are here saying that critical thinking, reflection, problem solving, activity based learning. From where will all these come? These can be possible only when we give space to a child to reflect, to understand, when there is peer learning, when there is collaboration, cooperation, and then when we have different sources being pulled together on one platform to ensure one single aim, which is holistic development of the child. As students of education, we all talk about the holistic development of child. But ask yourselves, and let me ask myself, to what extent we have been able to help the students, the parents, and our pupil teachers to realize this objective practically at the grassroots level? I doubt how many of us will reply in the affirmative. So further going on, this policy also talks about experiential learning. It gives me so much happiness to talk about experiential learning, wherein we have arts and sports and storytelling. All these things are very dear to my heart. They're very close to my heart, because it is only on the basis of these things, this kind of a pedagogy and methodology, that we can actually realize the objectives of education. When students are given the flexibility to be in a position to choose different subjects, and also see that their own interests are being provided the right platform to grow, to be nurtured, to be developed. Language. Now, you see, there are gaps that exist between the language spoken by the child and the medium of teaching. This policy talks about bridging this particular gap. It also talks about the three language formula, which will continue to be implemented while keeping in mind the constitutional provisions, aspirations of the people, the regions, and the union, and the need to promote multilingualism, as well as promote national unity. It's very important to see that we have these things in place while trying to bring in the changes that are the need of the hour, that we need to incorporate to be in a position to be the global competitors, for our youth, for our children, for our teacher educators. For the enrichment of children and for the preservation of these rich languages and their artistic treasures, students in all kinds of schools now will have the option of learning at least 2 years of a classical language of India, which is very good. It's associated literature through experiential and innovative approaches, including the integration of technology in from grade 6 to grade 12. I think it's for all of us, it's a blessing in disguise. This talks about the policy also talks about the different foreign languages which can be introduced. The policy talks about, I've said earlier, I repeat once again, the curricular and the pedagogical initiatives, which can definitely bring in the change that it is looking at. And like I said, that concerted efforts through suitable changes in curriculum and pedagogy will be made by NCRTs, by SCRTs, schools and educators to significantly reduce the weight of school bags and textbooks. We all have been listening, we all have been hearing that learning without burden was something which was given to us by UNESCO a long time back. There has been so much of research on the school bags and so much of research on the unnecessary burden on the child, which is there either because of the parent or the teacher. But I think a time has come wherein this policy is going to seriously look into all these aspects. The policy further talks about the teachers. Now, teacher eligibility tests will be strengthened to inculcate better test material, both in terms of content and pedagogy. Teachers will be given continuous opportunities for self improvement, which is very important. And these can be offered in multiple modes. I mean, you don't have to essentially leave your teaching or your job to be, kind of getting into a professional development program. By 2030, the minimum degree qualification for teaching will be a 4-year integrated B.Ed degree that teaches a range of knowledge content and pedagogy and includes strong practicum training in the form of student teaching at local schools. Like this, there are many other things which the policy has laid its stress on. But then I think what is also important for researchers, for thinkers, practitioners, members of the civil society is to start debating, discussing, and have conclaves like this so that we can have threadbare deliberations and then come out with concrete suggestions to help the government to implement the same without delays, without kind of saying that it has not been kind of discussed and debated at the grassroots level. So I think it's very important for us to play our parts as well. The SCRTs will develop a school quality assessment and accreditation framework through wide consultations with all the stakeholders, which is very important. And at the same time, what is very important for all of us to understand here at this level is that looking at school education, I think all of you will agree with me that this policy has a complete package in itself, right from the basic fundamentals, the curriculum, the different aspects which can be included, the transaction modalities, the evaluation pattern, follow up, multi-disciplinarity, multilingualism, flexibility, and all those aspects which will help the teachers, the parents, and the members of the civil society, including the researchers, planners, that we are in a position to see brighter youth, when at the end of 2030, because it has a lot to offer. But as takers, we have to see what are the takeaways, to what extent can we implement, very, very gradually, but in a very systematic way, trying to ensure that each step that we take is, kind of firmly footed wherever we foot it. The next part of it is higher education. Viewers and listeners, talking about school education in isolation would not be complete in itself. So I thought that I would definitely talk to some extent about higher education as well to have an understanding. The whole idea is to, kind of see to what extent this policy has, kind of exercised in different domains. The people who've been part of this particular policy have, I think, worked tremendously day and night to ensure that all aspects are given their due weightage. So, higher education, we all know, plays an extremely important role in promoting human as well as societal well being and in developing India as envisioned in its constitution, a democratic, just, socially conscious, cultured, and humane nation, upholding liberty, equality, and fraternity, and justice for all. Higher education significantly contributes towards sustainable livelihoods and economic development of the nation. As India moves towards becoming a knowledge economy and society, more and more young Indians are likely to aspire for higher education. This policy envisions a complete overhaul and re energizing of the higher education system to overcome challenges and thereby deliver high quality higher education with equity and inclusion. So, what it offers is a light but tight regulation by a single regulator for higher education, which is, I think, a welcome step for all of us. Increased access, equity, and inclusion through a range of measures, including greater opportunities for outstanding public education, scholarships by private philanthropic universities for disadvantaged and underprivileged students, online education, open distance learning, and all infrastructure and learning materials accessible and available to learners with disabilities. So, the stress on inclusion, integrity, and ensuring that everybody is in the portals of higher education, but in an appropriate manner, is also being looked at when we talk about higher education. This further says a stage-wise mechanism for granting graded autonomy to colleges through a transparent system of graded accreditation will be established. Colleges will be encouraged, mentored, supported, and incentivized to gradually attain the minimum benchmarks required for each level of accreditation. Over a period of time, it is envisaged that every college would develop into either an autonomous degree granting college or a constituent college of a university. In the latter case, it would be fully a part of the university, which means that if it is a constituent college, it will continue to remain part of the university. But if it attains the status of an autonomous college, it will have complete autonomy, complete independence, which is very good. With appropriate accreditations, autonomous degree granting colleges could evolve into research intensive or teaching intensive universities. So, actually, what is being said is that when we look at universities, we could either be autonomous degree granting or we could be research or teaching university. So we have to see that three types of offers have been given to us through this policy. Where is it that we would like to be moving ahead, and then accordingly plan for our accreditation, so that it is not a one time accreditation. We have to continuously improve upon it so that we do not come lower when it comes to the standard of teaching and learning in higher education. The overall higher education sector will remain to be an integrated higher education system, including professional and vocational education. This policy and its approach will be equally applicable to all higher education institutions across all current streams, which would eventually merge into one coherent ecosystem of higher education, which is very important. Now, this also talks about the model public universities for holistic and multidisciplinary education at par with IITs, IIMs. And then, this policy talks about multidisciplinary education and research universities, which are MERUs, which will be set up and will aim to attain the highest global standards in quality and education. So there's a lot that has been offered, in this policy. India will be promoted as a global study destination, providing premium education at affordable costs, thereby helping to restore its role as a Vishwaguru. That is what is going to be the image of India in the times to come, if all of you come together on a single platform and take a pledge to ensure the implementation of the policy, trying to contextualize it and keep the spirit of the policy intact. This policy is also, kind of trying to attract students at the, from the different other countries as well, hosting foreign students, and then to see to what extent can a different kind of a program be offered, so that the students who come from outside are also, kind of apprised of the culture, of the rich heritage, apart from studying the different subjects. And then when they go back to their own countries, they feel proud of the fact that they were educated in this country, which has become the Vishwaguru, which we say that will be in the times to come. In higher education, faculty will be given the freedom to design their own curricular and pedagogical approaches. I'm sure all of us are very happy about this, aren't we? That within the approved framework, including the textbook, the reading material, selections, assignments, and assessments. What are we doing at the present time? We have everything structured in higher education. So we give the same structure to our students. On one hand, we say that different students have different capacities, abilities, and their interests, and we have to see that each student is handled differently. And at the same time, we have one kind of a mechanism for every student that comes to us, whether it is the school education or the higher education. But if the teachers are given the task to design their own curriculum, their own curriculum transaction mechanism, the evaluation pattern, but then keeping certain norms, the national norms, the standards, into the purview, trying to understand that, I think it will become very, very interesting for the faculty. It would actually mean empowering the faculty to conduct innovative teaching, research, and service, as they see best will be a key motivator and enabler for them to do truly understanding creative work in the field area. What has been happening is that because we have everything structured, it's a mechanism. We are working in a way by which, I'm not saying that we are not allowed to be creative or we are not allowed to be different in our classrooms. But what I'm trying to say is that the teachers do not have the freedom to curtail some part of the curriculum which they feel may not be relevant. Things may have changed. Herein, we don't even change the curriculum for ages. When I came to the university, I think I was teaching my students something which I had studied when I was a student, both in B.Ed as well as in M.Ed. So therefore, I think the regular change is very important, and the teacher has to play a very important role when we talk about this particular change. But the teacher cannot play the role unless and until the teacher is given the flexibility and is empowered to go ahead with these changes. A national mission for mentoring shall be established with a large pool of outstanding senior or retired faculty, which is again a welcome step, including those with the ability to teach in Indian languages, who would be willing to provide short and long-term mentoring, professional support to university and college teachers. We all know that our senior faculty members, when they superannuate, so their talent and their experience, we are not able to utilize. But because of this policy, we will now have a platform wherein we can bring them into the fold. And through their, I would say, experience, through their vision, together we can sit and then plan something which can be more contextualized, which can be more appropriate and can be more different. So, looking at these, we also know that this policy also looks at the professional councils, such as the Indian Council for Agricultural Research, the Veterinary Council of India, the National Council for Teacher Education, Council for Architecture, National Council for Vocational Education and Training. These will act as professional standard setting bodies, and they will play a very key role in the higher education system, will be invited by the members of the General Education Council. I think it's very important. Till now, we were all working in our own domains, in our own areas, but when we all come together, we can blend, we can have synergy, we can give lots of options, and we can definitely bring out a curriculum which will be more workable, which will be more realistic, and which will be something which is the need of the hour. We will be in a position to realize what we say is that like I said, the theory of demand and supply. Whatever is demanded can actually be supplied as well. Now, when we talk about the other aspects, the policy talks about professional education, When it talks about professional education, it says that it becomes an integral part of the overall higher education system. Standalone agricultural universities, legal universities, health science universities, technical universities, and standalone institutions in other fields shall aim to become multidisciplinary institutions offering holistic and multidisciplinary education. So, all institutions offering either professional or general education will aim to organically evolve into institutions or clusters offering both seamlessly and in an integrated manner by 2030. I think it's a welcome step that we have professional education as part of our higher education. Then technology will be leveraged to strengthen and even undertake the initiatives which have been just mentioned. Quality technology based options for adult learning, such as apps, online courses, modules, satellite based TV channels, online books, ICT equipped libraries, adult education centers, can all be developed and will be developed through government and philanthropic initiatives, as well as through crowdsourcing and competitions. In many cases, quality adult education could thereby be conducted in an online or blended mode, which again is a welcome step. The arts form a major medium for imparting culture. Arts, besides strengthening cultural identity, awareness, and uplifting societies, well known to enhance cognitive and creative abilities in individuals and increase individual happiness. Happiness, well being, cognitive development, cultural identity, arts must be offered to students at all levels of education, starting with early childhood care and education, which actually means that as and when we move further from school education to higher education, we do not include these activities in our curriculum. Because in higher education, the focus is when the students go to professional, technical, vocational institutions, is like that kind of an education in isolation with what is being provided in higher education institutions. And in higher education institutions, again, the students do not participate unless and until they are part of certain organizations like the NSS, the NCC, the Red Cross, Bharat Scouts and Guides. They are not actually, contributing with regard to, I would say, ethics, the culture, the values, the constitutional provisions, and so on and so forth. So it's only when you are given an opportunity to include all these, which can easily be done by giving a small portion of the assignments, of the practical work, of the internship, which can be done by students in their own locations. Some of you who are listening to me would have worked with me despite the fact that you were in higher education, you were in professional, technical, or vocational institutions. You know how wonderfully you all worked with me. So, if we could do that, I don't think that what has been offered here in this NEP 2020 will be difficult for any one of us to achieve or to realize. It is just a state of mind. We say that why as a teacher in higher education, it's not my responsibility. As a teacher in the teacher training institution, I have only to groom, to nurture, to nourish, to train a teacher, a pupil teacher. But then that pupil teacher becomes a pupil teacher, or a student in a higher education institute becomes an adult limited to the knowledge which is being transacted in the classroom, four walls of the classroom, and or maybe maximum the laboratories if they are from those streams, and not outside that. So the policy offers all these things in the form of a beautiful bouquet, which has, I think, every color, every flower, every activity. So we have to be, I think, proactive. We have to see to what extent can we pick up whatever we require, whether we are from the professional, the technical, the vocational institutions, so that we are in a position to offer the best to our students, to our children. The policy also has a rich variety of educational software for all kinds of purposes, which could be developed and made available for students. Now, when we talk about these softwares, it has already been mentioned that the policy envisages to take the other different departments, the other bodies, whether they are at the regional level or at the national level, come together so that the softwares can be appropriately designed and made available. I think NCRT has already taken a lead in designing and executing some of these softwares. I've myself witnessed those. So, besides scholarships for people of all ages, is something which the policy has in its kitty to study Indian languages, art, and culture with the local masters, and also promotion of Indian languages, which can actually become a reality only when it becomes part and parcel of our teaching and learning and cannot be taught in isolation. The incentives such as there could be poetry and prose in Indian languages across categories. These need to be established, and we also have to see that to what extent can the proficiency in Indian languages can be included as part of the qualification parameters for employment opportunities. That will help quite a lot, because most of us know so many languages, but then we feel that we are not able to optimize the knowledge, the understanding that we all have gained over the period of time, because that is something which is not required in our institutions of higher education. But, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, you know that a time has come with this policy when we can optimize all that we have within ourselves. The policy also talks about the fact that data is a key fuel for artificial intelligence based technology. It is critical to raise awareness on issues of privacy, laws, and standards associated with data handling and data protection. It is also necessary to highlight ethical issues surrounding the development and deployment of artificial intelligence based technologies. Education will play a key role in these awareness raising efforts. Other disruptive technologies that are expected to change the way we live and therefore change the way we educate the students include those related to clean and renewable energy, water conservation, sustainable farming, environmental preservation, and other green initiatives. And these will also receive prioritized attention in education. So those of you who have worked with me, you know that you all have worked in farming, in adult education, and in trying to create awareness on social issues, on language, and many more. I think it's much more than what we are seeing in this policy. Technology in education is a journey and not a destination. Capacity will be needed to orchestrate the various ecosystem players to implement the policy objectives. A dedicated unit for the purpose of orchestrating the building of digital infrastructure, digital content, and capacity building will be created in the ministry to look after the e-education needs of both the school and the higher education. So, what does this mean? That the policy is not talking about the policy per se in isolation of its being concretized, actually happening at the grassroots level. Now, I come to the last part of it, making it happen. The policy recommends strengthening and empowering the Central Advisory Board of Education, which will have a much greater mandate and not only a forum for widespread consultation and examination of issues relating to educational and cultural development. The policy commits to significantly raising educational investment, as there is no better investment towards a society's future than the high quality education of our young people. Any policy's effectiveness depends on its implementation. Such implementation will require multiple initiatives and actions, which will have to be taken by multiple bodies in a synchronized and systematic manner. Therefore, the implementation of this policy will be led by various bodies, including MHRD, CAPE, union and state governments, education related ministries, state departments of education, boards, NTA, the regulatory bodies of school and higher education, NCERT, SCERT, schools, higher education institutions, along with timeless and a plan for review in order to ensure, along with timeliness and a plan for review in order to ensure that the policy is implemented in its spirit and intent through coherence in planning and synergy across all these bodies involved in education. The new education policy must provide to all students, irrespective of their place of residence, a quality education system with particular focus on historically marginalized, disadvantaged, and underrepresented groups. Education is a great leveler and is the best tool for achieving economic and social mobility, inclusion, and equality. Initiatives must be in place to ensure that all students from all such groups, despite inherent obstacles, are provided various targeted opportunities to enter and excel in the educational system. These elements must be incorporated, taking into account the local and global needs of the country, and with a respect for and deference to its rich diversity and culture. Instilling knowledge of India and its varied social, cultural, and technological needs, its inimitable artistic, language, and knowledge traditions, and its strong ethics in India's young people is considered critical for purposes of national pride, self confidence, self knowledge, cooperation, and integration. See, what this policy actually offers us, I think, is so complete in itself that we do not have to look at other documents just for the sake of looking at the documents and trying to understand what is missing in the current policy, NEP 2020. But, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, this policy opens up new vistas of knowledge for all of us. It opens up in new avenues for all of us. It gives us enough food for thought. And at the same time, when we are talking, you, me, everybody who's participating, viewing, and listening to this particular conclave, what is actually happening is, you know what? We are, I would say, subconsciously or unconsciously taking a pledge, trying to give a promise to our Honorable Prime Minister, to the Lieutenant Governor of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, that by organizing these programs, we take a pledge to move with you, with your vision, to ensure the concrete implementation of the policy in letter and spirit as soon as it is possible for all of us to do. We are not going to wait for anyone. We have found that this policy is a policy which has already gained so much of respect and debate all over the country. So a policy which is, kind of taken the, I think, all aspects, whether it is the social or the economic or the cultural, and then ultimately comes to the all-round development, the humanistic development, the holistic development, based on making every human humane. That is the core principle of this. So with this, I think I end my presentation, sharing of my thoughts, my ideas about NEP 2020. And I think if you all have any queries, any questions, I'll be very happy to take those. And at the same time, I would like to thank the organizers, the principal of the college, everybody else who's part of it, and a very, very special thanks to Dr. Sushma and Dr. Shubhra, who did not give up despite the fact they and we know what all was happening. But ladies and gentlemen, it gives me once again an immense pleasure to be with all of you this afternoon, and I will cherish it for all times to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for enlightening us with your wonderful and a very informative lecture. I'm very sure that everybody will be benefited with your this free lecture, and I think you have explained everything so minutely that we have just we have understood NEP 2020 in a real sense. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I think anybody from the audience who want to ask any question from ma'am, so he or she can.
Uh, I would just like to interrupt. I'm sorry, Ravinder. I would just like to thank Renu for joining us today, and I would take this opportunity, this platform, to sincerely thank her because she is my teacher, my mentor, my guide. I owe what my personality to her because I remember I got a president award because of ma'am. I was I was a member of Bharat Scouts and Guide and Rover Rangers also. So we adopted a village and we went there. We used to do a lot of social work when I was in college. I'm talking when I was in college. I was a student at that time. And ma'am, I owe everything to you. What my personality, I could just correlate myself. The holistic personality is overall development, actually, is what you do practically. And thanks to you, you made me like this. Thank you so much, ma'am.
I'm proud of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So, shall we proceed further, or shall we wait for some questions from the audience? Any questions from the audience side?
Thank you, Nanda ma'am.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I know you are really, in real sense, you are a teacher. इससे ज़्यादा हम और कुछ नहीं कह सकते because you have really defined this term.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you so much. Proud
My
of you.
pleasure, ma'am.
Thank you.